What's up, guys? Your King of the Night, Vince Val. It is your own top Archpiece of Chaos. It's your King of the Night, Vince Valentine, EX Turk, and we're here with another Final Fantasy segment, and I'm doing this on my webcam. We're gonna be discussing why Final Fantasy villains make the best video game villains of all time, and what makes them so deep, and why do people love these villains? Like, what makes Final Fantasy villains, everyone's favorite villains. For one, yes, there's some cliches, but they're not overboarded with cliches. They're not overboarded with cliches, and some villains actually become anti-heroes a little bit later on and become even more likable than they were as a villain, such as, I don't know, even smaller villains like Rufus Shinra, who later on become an anti-hero, later on in the series. But we're mostly going to focus on main title villains, but that's not the point. The point is they're likable because there's deep and complex, and there's good and bad reasons to everything. Now, there's villains with good reasons to do what they do, and then there's ones with bad reasons. Bad reasons for a villain would be Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, and not just because he's a Joker carbon copy, but the fact he just wants to destroy stuff just out of insanity, or just the cliche villains like X-Death and Cloud of Darkness, who just wants to put everything in a void. There were actually, all the rest of Final Fantasy villains are very complex and have their own agenda. And this is why I think Final Fantasy villains make the best, makes the best villains in the series, is because they're so complex, and you never know what's going through every villain's mind until you play the whole game. Such as Sephiroth. Sephiroth started as a hero. He was hailed as a hero. Everybody looked up to Sephiroth. Every female wanted to fuck Sephiroth. Every parent wanted their kid to grow up to be like Sephiroth, because he was the Shinra military's best soldier ever and a role model. And what turned him bad was long years of PTSD and finding out about his creation, which, Sephiroth is the type of villain that you can understand why he went to the dark side. That you can understand why Sephiroth went evil and wanted to get rid of human beings. Because Final Fantasy VII is more than just the political systems and stuff like that. It's a battle between true good and evil. And in Sephiroth's mind, all humans are evil because humans funded the experiment, and humans are the ones who got his biological mother supposedly killed, and made a bunch of innocent civilians suffer through harsh experimentations to make that. So you can understand Sephiroth's mindset that he could never live a normal life. He couldn't get a wife or kids because he was not normal. He couldn't be normal because he just wasn't normal, because of what made him. So he lost his own life alongside seeing that humans would hurt their own kind to get far in life. And that's what Sephiroth thought, which was a good reasoning. Not to say I defend his actions. In fact, his actions were just as bad as the Shinra companies. But you gotta understand Sephiroth's mindset, which will actually, I promise I wasn't going to do much advertising, but I'm going to advertise Nathan J. Gallagher's novel, The Man in the Black, unofficial novel I meant, The Man in the Black Cloak. It goes around Sephiroth's story and what made him thought the way he did. But you can understand villains like Sephiroth because his life was taken away from him. His childhood was taken away from him. His biological mother was taken away from him. Everything he loved was taken away from him. And then he was only meant to serve the same people that took everything away from him. And then there's villains with shitty reasons to do what they do. Of course, it's also about mindset. What makes these villains do what they do is a tad of narcissism. Kuja isn't the only narcissist in Final Fantasy games. Even though he's like the biggest face of what narcissism is. Sephiroth was a little narcissistic as well, because Sephiroth thought if he destroyed the world and rebuilt in his image as a god, it would create peace. Like, Sephiroth actually thought that. Even if you read the Man in the Black Cloak novel, that's exactly what was going through his head all this time. And then there's Arden, where Arden didn't get the Ascended King's power, even though he was a healer and and he was beloved by the people. You know, Arden was beloved by the people before all this. He was one of the best Lucius Caeliums ever up to in that time period. In his mind, he thought he should have been chosen as the Ascended King, but he was impure because of the scourge and his jealousy toward his older brother, because he thought he should have been Arden thought he should have been the Ascended King. And this is where I think Final Fantasy villains are a lot more deeper than any other video game villains. It's the fact that, you know, there is legitimate motives, and also Final Fantasy villains suffer some kind of mental illness, and most of them, like Sephiroth, Arden, and Kuja, are pretty much one and the same when it comes to mindset. When I'm talking about by mindset, narcissism. Sephiroth thought he should destroy the world and rebuild in his image. Arden thought he should be the Ascended King and rule the whole universe using the Star Scourge, because he didn't get the ascend, because he thought his brother was unworthy and he was the one worthy to get the Scourge. So, and actually, believe it or not, I know jealousy is not a deep reasoning, and Arden wasn't very deep because his reasoning was all jealousy. But if you really look at, you know, if you go biblical, there's a reason why jealousy is one of the 7 deadly sins. There's a reason why jealousy is a big thing of one of the 7 deadly sins. It will cause you to do everything. It will create a narcissistic state in your mind where you do anything to have or covet what someone else has. In this case, Arden wanted the power of the Ascended King, even though the Astrals turned him down. Arden thought that the Astrals were wrong for doing this. And that's where his narcissistic mindset has came from. And as well with Kuja. Kuja tried to blow up a world because he couldn't stand a world that could live without him, without his existence, and he couldn't stand that, so he wanted to take the world with him, you know. But that's what I said, and there's deep reason, and then there's Seymour Guado. Even though I don't like Seymour Guado, he's on the level of Verstale and Hojo. Seymour Guado thought if he turned to sin, that it would cure the world's problems, that it would help the world. In his narcissistic mindset, he thought this would save the world and pretty much eject Titus's father of being sin, which was a lie. He just wanted to rule the world. But in the mindset of these villains that make these villains deep, in their mindset, they believe that they're a hero. And if you ever know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. In your mind, in your own mind, you may think you might do something right, but other people might not be on the same level as thinking. In fact, might even scorn you for thinking the way you are. It's kind of like how, you know, social justice warriors are, how racist people are, how, you know, how any radical group, pretty much, any radical group has this thinking that their ideal of a world is for the betterment of mankind. Hence why they do what they do. You know, even government systems as well, such as the governor in Final Fantasy XII, Vayne. Vayne thought he was doing the world a justice, but in fact, Vayne was destroying more than he was helping. And that's what made Vayne a villain, even though, I'll be honest, I like the character. I don't like to speak badly or abusive of that character, because I like that character, but, you know, he's one of my other favorites. But I gotta be honest, Vayne is a bad guy for the fact that his ideals cost lives. And such as Caius as well. Caius wanted to save his friend, that's the, and sure, it was good to save Yule, because Yule's, because it's good to save your best friend, but not at the cost of millions of timelines. Because Caius killed a lot of timelines. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Even though Caius thought he was doing was good, he was pig-headed because of his ego and narcissism that pushed Caius to think he could do it. First of all, but the first thing Caius did was kill Etro. Yes, Etro was a bitch. I didn't like Etro at all. In fact, I was glad the original Etro was killed, for the fact that she put a curse on Yule. but killing her messed up the cycle of life and death because, well, she's the Grim Reaper, and if you mess up the cycle of life and death and then mess up the timelines, you just cost a whole bunch of lives. In fact, be honest, Caius has taken more lives than Sephiroth has. I'd say Caius has taken more lives, as much lives as Ardyn did. Even though Caius did it unknowingly because he didn't think he would affect the timeline, the fact is, it's like going back to the Flashpoint again. You know, messing with time messes with everything, you know. So a few people might die due to your incompetence. But in Caius's mind, he was saving Yule, and yes, however honorable that is, having honor does not mean shit when you're doing something that's gonna cost. It's not what you're thinking about or what your ideology that matters. It's what you're willing to do for that ideology that causes you to be on the hero side and villain side. Heroes put themselves on rules and basic principles that they will never do. Villains, they'll do any means to complete their project. They'll do anything necessary, even at the cost of people's lives. That's why villains are what they are, villains, because they're technically bad because they're willing to do anything and willing to go out there to do it. But what makes these villains deep is the fact that they've lost so much, and they see a much deeper side of human history and humans that causes these villains to shift into what they are. Just like when Sephiroth found out about the experiments that made him, understandably, Sephiroth is going to get mad and like, you took me away from my mom and everything, and you did this to me, and I worked for you. You know, you start to believe everything you believe in is a lie, and that's going to mess up. Such as a same thing with, you know, running the government the way Vayne in Final Fantasy 12 has, you know, ran the government. And then there's also, you know, Ardyn. Even though Ardyn is not a deep story because it was all based off jealousy, Ardyn is pretty much a deep character on the fact that reason why he thought that way, Ardyn is like Kuja. He's a narcissist. And what made Ardyn into a narcissist is not his upbringing. It's the fact that he was beloved by the people. Everybody loved him, so it got in his head. It got in Ardyn's head, and then Ardyn started to think he was the stuff to the point where that he believed he should have got the extended king power and not his brother. You know? And understandably, being popularity could change a person's mind. Most celebrities fall to that dark side temptation. Is popularity can mess up your mind, because if you're not used to popularity, you'll think in your mind that you're always right and you can never be wrong. So that's why I think these make these wonderful villains. It's mostly the fact you learn more about psychology, seeing these Final Fantasy villains in actions, and then they tell why they did what they did. You can't help but to feel sorry for some of the villains. Like, I'll be honest, I feel sorry for Sephiroth. You know, I really feel sorry for him. Ardyn, I really don't, because I think that's, you know, something that could be arranged. But anyways, there's a psychological value in Final Fantasy villains. You know, and that's why people love these Final Fantasy villains. Now, tell me what you think in the comments, the reason why people love Final Fantasy villains. And may the crystal be with you. I'm pushing this video out there. I don't feel so good, but I'm going to push this video for my viewers.